Welcome to part 3 of the executive branch, the presidency video lecture. These are kind of just odds and ends, some things to consider when you are looking at the presidency and trying to put everything in order and make sense of it all. So let's talk about the presidential popularity approval rating. So there's the honeymoon period on the approval rating. This is usually the first 100 days of the presidency of a new president's term, and it's just everyone's riding high. That they have been elected, and they're going into office, and they've got like things that they want to change, and of course everyone's like, we'll give them 100 days to see what they can do during that time period. And that's the honeymoon period. At about 100 days, the honeymoon period is over, and that's oftentimes, you'll start to see the media be a little tougher on the president and not be as positive and put as positive spin on what the president is doing and is able to accomplish. Now, this isn't for every president. Sometimes presidents don't get that full honeymoon period, but most of the time they do. Power is correlated to the approval rating. So if the approval rating through polling shows that the public, overwhelmingly supports the president, so above 50% supports the president, then that's going to increase the power of the president to get policies that they want passed. They are able to put pressure on Congress to get what they want because they're popular. They're a popular individual, and the public supports what that individual is doing, and so they can get things done. But it also means that if the approval rating goes down, then they have less power. Now, their approval rating tends to decline over time, and therefore their power tends to decline over time. And this is for every president, but it's just they've been there longer, and so kind of the newness wears off, and people can get frustrated with how slow things are, or the compromising needed to get policies passed, and so therefore people start to not approve as much. But government moves slow when it comes to changes. Factors that increase approval rating. So the two big factors that increase approval rating is a short-term war, so having to go to war, doing some sort of military action for a short term increases a president's approval rating, and good economic outlook. So the economy is strong, then the approval rating will be high for the president. In past years, oftentimes people would just focus on the stock market, but in the last several years, the conversation has turned more to, the stock market is doing really well, but how is the average Joe doing, like on wages, and how many jobs are they having to work, which then goes into the economic outlook. And then factors decreasing approval rating. Obviously, if a short-term war raises it, a long-term war will decrease the approval rating. And if a positive or increasing economic activity increases the approval rating, then that means if there's a downturn or a sluggish economy, then that will hurt the approval ratings of the president. Another thing that hurts the approval ratings for a president would be a scandal, would hurt the president's approval rating. President and the media. All right, first and foremost, it's a love-hate relationship. They need each other, but they hate that they need each other, okay? The media depends on the president because what do they talk about? It's a lot of stuff based on what the president is doing. And of course, the president doesn't always like the way the media spins things and, talks about things, but, they need him. Like, the president needs the media to spread the message. Because remember, the media acts as agenda setter. So if there's something that they want the media to focus on, the president's gonna need them to be on board. So, like I said, love-hate relationship. The media also is the microphone for the bully pulpit. Okay, bully pulpit, this is an informal power of the president. It is the persuasion of, the president is a very big, powerful tool that the president has, and the president is going to use the media to be that microphone for the bully pulpit that they have. And this also means that they get direct access to the public through the media. So the media is going to clear their schedules to cover a, speech by the president if he wants to speak to, the American people. I want to speak to the American people and I want to do it in 30 minutes. They're clearing their schedule and they're going to cover it. And so the American people can hear that. So it gives them the direct access to the public through the media. The press secretary is kind of the main spokesperson for the president when it comes to the media. They will hold press briefings. Sometimes they're weekly, sometimes they're daily, sometimes they're, every 2 weeks, whatever the schedule with that administration is. But they are the ones who are going to convey the president's message and clarify anything the president may have said. Now, institutional presidency, this is, who is around the president, who is helping the one individual that is the executive, who is helping them out. So first off, you have the administration or the bureaucracy. So you have all the government agencies. Their job is to basically implement all the laws, and the president will instruct them on how to do that. Okay, but that is the institution. You have the White House staff. So you need to think of this part, kind of the president's in the middle. It's like a bullseye. The president's in the middle, and then directly right around him is a ring of like the White House staff. And this is going to be the communication directors. This is the press secretary. This is the speech writers. This is the chief of staff, the deputy chief of staff, any advisor. And these positions are not appointed, like nominated and approved by the Senate. These are just people the president wants around him, and they are individuals oftentimes that have helped on the campaign. So the key positions here is your press secretary, your chief of staff, your speech writers, and the communications department. And then any other advisors, like sometimes they might have an economic advisor, or they will have might do a medical, like during a pandemic, they may have some advisor come on board that can help them. Now, just outside the White House staff is the executive office of the president. The EOP is what they call it. And this is going to be the vice president and the vice president's office and his advisors, or their advisors, the first lady's office. It's the National Security Council. It's the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the chairman. The Council for Economic Affairs. So these are individuals, they do have to be appointed and approved, but they are very much an advisor. They get the ear of the president a lot. And then you have the cabinet, and there are 16 cabinet positions, and really they're not important anymore. We still have them, and they are used to basically implement policy, but they're not a line agency with, they don't have the ear of the president. Secretary of State, Attorney General, the Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Defense, they got the ear of the president. But if you're the Secretary of the Interior, which is, land management, you're not talking to the president very often. You may get a memo and be like, this is what I need you to do. So the cabinet, it's there to be advisors, but they are not utilized in that fashion anymore. And there is competition and conflict among these political actors. All of them want their position, their agency, especially if they're an agency head, to be successful and to accomplish their goals. And they want as much of the budget as they can get. They want Congress to approve their projects, whatever they can do. And oftentimes that puts them in conflict and in competition with each other, which can make it not so comfortable sometimes around the White House. So a few other considerations when we deal with the executive branch and the president. So first off, the original text of the executive branch, Article 2, is vague. So that basically means presidential power. It's what you make it. So so every president's going to view and attack, I shouldn't say attack, or use the powers of the presidency in slightly different ways. And they're going to have different views on what powers they have and what powers they don't have. Next is the 22nd Amendment. This establishes the 2-term limit. This helps limit the power of the president, so it kind of defines the original text a little bit more to ensure that they don't become authoritarian and kind of solidify power. So the 22nd Amendment, 2 terms. And then the 25th Amendment is the Presidential Succession Act and Disability Act, and this just lays out a couple of different ways in which the president could be removed from office. Okay, he dies. It establishes firmly that the vice president is going to be president, not acting president. It talks about if the president needs to temporarily give up or step down temporarily, like because they're going to have surgery or they've had a family crisis or something in those natures. And then it also talks about what the procedure is if the president cannot willingly do the job anymore. They're in like a coma or they've had a stroke and they cannot do the job, how that process works. And then also it deals with what if the president is still attempting to do the job, but clearly mentally they cannot do the job. And there's the procedure to lay that out as well. And then the vice president. So first and foremost, the selection of the vice president oftentimes is thought about and is vetted. All individuals are vetted on the idea that they are there to balance out the ticket. So any weaknesses that are seen in the presidential candidate, they're going to try to find a vice presidential candidate that will kind of even those out. So if you have a candidate that is from the coast, you want someone from the middle of the country. If you have someone who is from a rural area, you want someone who, the vice president then would be from a more urban area. If you have someone if you have a candidate that is weak on foreign policy, then you want your vice presidential candidate to be strong and have some experience with foreign policy. And then the role and power of the vice president. Originally, the role was that they would just basically sit around and wait for something either to happen to the president, so they would step in, or it would be the other direction, not the other direction, but the other power or job that they had was to break a tie. So they're just sitting around waiting. Today, the presidents oftentimes utilize their vice presidents to help them try to get policy passed to increase public support for various policies. And sometimes the vice presidents have pet projects of their own that they would like to work on with the blessing of the president. Recess appointments. So these are appointments that are made when Congress is on recess. So basically like vacation. So if Congress is dragging their feet, then to approve of any nominations, the president can step in and nominate and like basically put someone in that position. Now it's temporary. They are only there until the start of the next session of Congress, which would be January. And then of course we talked about the institutional presidency, which we've already talked about. And then lame duck. So the lame duck period for the president here is that time period between the election in November and the inauguration in January. And originally the inauguration was in March, but we have an amendment that moves it up to January. But during those, 8 weeks, those 2 months, 2.5 months period, we have another president coming in. So Congress is going to be very reluctant to work on any policy goals of this current sitting president because there's a new president getting ready to come in. So they're seen as lame duck because they really are not going to get anything major accomplished during that time period. All right, so this wraps up the final part of the Executive Branch Notes Part 3. If you have any questions, let me know. And as always, don't do anything too stupid. Bye, guys.